Everyone, and welcome. The Broadband Bunch Zero Touch Learning Series is live. I'm Craig Corbin. Thanks so much for joining us. Today's session, the 16th in our series, Get Lost, a broadband mapping tool that really works. The Broadband Bunch podcasts and Zero Touch Learning Series presented by Utopia Fiber, building a more connected nation, by DXTEL, creators of the Harper Broadband Marketing Library, by Calix, the cloud and software platforms to simplify businesses, excite subscribers, and grow value. By ITK, In the Know Solutions Group, process first, technology second. And by your zero-touch automation experts, ETI Software Solutions. Be sure to follow the Broadband Bunch on Facebook at facebook.com/the Broadband Bunch, and on Twitter at twitter.com/podcast bunch. You can access Broadband Bunch podcasts on Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and on iHeartRadio. A couple of quick reminders before we introduce our guest today. The session is interactive. If you have questions, we ask you to please submit them because we want to include that in the discussion. And you can do that via the chat function. Our team will be monitoring those throughout the event. Session is also being recorded and will be available for future access. Also, we would certainly appreciate you sharing any potential topics for future Zero Touch Learning Series sessions, or if you'd like to suggest prospective panelists. Again, that can be done via the chat function. And we thank you in advance for your participation. Time now to introduce our moderator, a 30-year veteran of the communications industry. Heather Gold is CEO of HBG Strategy and previously served as president and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association following her tenure as senior vice president of external affairs and access management for XO Communications. She graduated magna cum laude from Tufts University with bachelor's and master's degrees in economics, earned an MBA in finance and marketing from Washington University in St. Louis, and also completed the general management program of the Harvard Business School. Our moderator for Get Lost, a broadband mapping tool that really works, Heather Gold. And Heather, welcome. We want to sort of make mention to our guests today that there are always lurking in the background some of those technology gremlins that might affect some video or audio. If that happens, hang with us and we will try to work through those technology issues as the session continues. Have a fantastic discussion.
And thank you, Craig, and thank you for saying that, as we have had some issues. But it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Sarah Bleau, who is with NTIA and has been actively engaged in their mapping program, which they've been working away for months on it. And instead of titling it Get Lost, I would like to say Get Found. And Sarah is going to give us both an overview of the creation of the valuable tool that's now available to the public, as well as a demonstration of how it's working. As we know, incomplete and inaccurate mapping of broadband has been an ongoing issue for years. Unfortunately, our current federal funding and many of the state programs have had to rely on this information, which was originated and submitted by the carriers themselves. And we all know that that's the fox in the henhouse. We are all hoping that NTIA, with its partner states and the FCC, as they move forward, we will have better data, which will result in more accurate maps, so as to have better, more adequate broadband information, so we can figure out really the areas that need broadband, and funding can be more targeted and effective. Just using public data, NTIA has already greatly expanded our knowledge. As Craig said, if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and between myself and other members of the Broadband Bunch team, we will feed them to Sarah. And with that, I am going to shut down my video and let Sarah take the show. Sarah.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you very much, Craig. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm going to go over a couple of slides very quickly, and then we're going to dive into the demonstration of the indicators of broadband need map. These slides that you see here are just examples of the different indicators of need data that we've included in the map. We've got the FCC, we've got Microsoft data, we've got speed test data from MLab and Ookla. I'm going to go into detail later in the demonstration. I just wanted to provide an overview here. And all of this information is also contained on the website itself, as you will see. So with that, I'm going to switch over and let everybody know where you can find this map. If you go to our broadbandusa.ntia.doc.gov website and go to resources, you'll see here there's a drop down for data and mapping. And we'll go down here right in the middle is this map that we've been talking about. I'm going to click on that map. And as we wait for it to get in place, here we go. For anybody who hasn't used this before, just wanted to call to your attention that normally you will see a pop-up arrive on the screen right here that you can just click yes to. I've been on this site quite a few times that I've actually dismissed it. So this is it. This is the Indicators of Broadband Need interactive map. It was designed to bring multiple third-party data sources together to help the public better understand the digital divide and the connection between poverty and the lack of broadband access or use. I've talked to a lot of people about this map. This is the beginning of the conversation. And what we're going to do right now is I'm going to provide a high-level overview of the map so you can understand how to navigate, and then I'll go further into those details. So over here, you will see that we have data available at the county down here. We've got, it's grayed out right now, but also at the tract and census block levels. We also have information about minority serving institutions. We've got tribal land information. And please do keep an eye on these different levels of geography, because as we zoom in, the tract or the census block layers will automatically, they will change depending what we're looking at. It's a dynamic map. And these are all the data sources that are available. If I go over here, this icon is the legend. And what you see here is at the county, census tract, and census block level, all of those different data layers. If it's a red, then that means, yes, this is an indicator of broadband need. If it's green, it means that it's not an indicator. And sometimes it is actually gray also, and that means that we have no data. We also have here down at the bottom various icons to denote the type of minority serving institutions. So for example, we've got historically Black colleges and universities. We've got tribal colleges and universities. We've also got tribal lands indicated with these marks across the land there. Over here, you have the ability to toggle on or off different minority serving level institutions. And I'll get into that in a little bit. And this is the information section. Just a caveat that the information that I put on the slides preceding this came exactly from here. What I'd like to call to your attention is that this data is presented as is. We have collected third-party data. This is not data that NTIA has generated ourselves. We're trying to bring together that data in a meaningful way, and we've provided a way to access the underlying aggregated data to support the map, and layer by layer descriptions with links to the source material. So that's what you see here. The data sources being the American Community Survey, MLab, Ookla, Microsoft, and the FCC Form 477. So I am going to, oops, sorry about that. Over here on the right side, we have a user guide. And this will, again, give you information about the data layers themselves. If anybody is not familiar with GIS or how to work this is a completely commercial off-the-shelf software package. And so we've got some instructions here how to do some basic GIS navigating, as well as different sections. And then over here on the far right is the FAQs. This is a link to frequently asked questions that some people might find interesting, and know that this is a living document, and so that it will grow over time. So getting back over here to the map itself, what's interesting with GIS data and the capabilities is layering. And so what you can see here on the top with these layers is that everything is turned on. I'm going to turn a few of them off, and then we'll talk about them individually. This takes a little minute here. So let's begin with, as Heather mentioned, the FCC Form 477 data. The way that we presented this is we know that 477 data is presented at the census block. And the methodology is that if anybody in the census block is served with 25.3, then the whole block is deemed as served. And sometimes that can lead to an overstatement of broadband availability in some areas. So what we really wanted to do is to find out where are broadband service providers reporting to the FCC that they do not have 25.3 capabilities at the census block level. That means no single household in the entire census block is served with 25.3 to meet that threshold. And so that's what you're seeing here on the map right now, is everywhere that is red is information, data that's been reported by the service providers to the FCC to indicate, no, we have no capabilities of serving any household in that census block with 25.3 bandwidth ability. Next, I'm going to click on this Microsoft layer, which is over here at the top. And when you think of the Microsoft usage data, you want to think of this as machine-to-machine usage data. When we're sleeping at night, those of us who have a Microsoft product in our home connects to the internet, and it can download security patches, software, other things like that. Microsoft has a way to get into our house with that to measure the speed on the download. And so what we're saying right here with this layer is that 75% or more of the people in that county who use Microsoft services are not downloading at 25 megabits per second. I'm going to turn this off.
So Sarah, before you
Yes.
go on,
Yes.
have you reached out to get Apple to help with a similar connected device information? Because as a Mac user, I'm always getting notifications that I'm going to get an upgrade during the night or whatever. So I know that they're doing that kind of stuff overnight too.
Well, yes, that's a great question. I have a Mac too, and I love it. And I think that would be useful because not everybody has a PC or Microsoft tools. What we've taken is the Microsoft publicly available data. So we don't have that with Apple right now, but that would be a great data point. I agree.
And I have another question from the audience. They notice on the map that there are shades of red. Is that an indication of anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as you can see right now, we only, it might be maybe like different shades of red just because my PC doesn't work so well all red. Right now, we've only got one layer turned on, and that's the FCC Form 77. This is just, if it's more red right now, maybe it's because some census, I don't think this is happening, but census blocks might be overlaying. It doesn't mean anything in particular. What we're showing right now is only the FCC information. However, when we get back over here and turn on Microsoft, then it does become a different shade of red. And where it becomes a brighter red, that means that the Microsoft data is reinforcing what the FCC is reporting based on what the service providers have turned in. The Microsoft data also gives us more red. There are other areas, according to Microsoft, as you can see here. We'll switch off, and if we switch on again, we'll see that there are new areas where the Microsoft data is suggesting that there are download speeds in counties not available at 25 megabits per second. Does that answer your question, Heather?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
And now I have another one. Oh,
okay.
I knew this was going to happen with this. This individual says when he zooms in, the top two categories are faded and are not available.
I wonder, for the person who's doing that, it might be, I assume that you're talking about zooming in at the, the county, the tract, or the census block. And we will get through that. Remember at the beginning of this, if that's what the question is, we talked about keep an eye on the county, tract, and census block. The way that this map works is right now we're so far zoomed out that only county information is available for us to view. But I'll go through a demonstration. We'll actually look at a township, and as we zoom in, then county boundaries goes away and tract level pops up. And then if we zoom in a little bit more, census block becomes the living layer, and then tract and counties kind of grays out. Does that make sense?
The person said, got it, thanks. And then one other, you talk about download speeds. Is there anything that would help us know what the upload speeds are? As we all know, that's gotten more important recently.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Microsoft is only measuring the download speeds. However, we're going to get into the speed tests with MLab and Ookla in just a second. And those crowdsourced speed tests measure both the download and the upload speeds.
So I think what Sarah's saying to all of us is, let's just wait a few minutes.
But please, I love the questions. This is great. Thank you. So right now I'm going to turn off the Microsoft. Remember, this is at the county level. I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to take a look at the MLab data. MLab, or Measurement Labs, as it's also known, is a crowdsourced speed test data. We see a similar story as what we saw with Microsoft at the county level. At points, you're going to see more red, and that means that the FCC Form 477 data is being reinforced. But then it also highlights other areas of the country. I'll turn it off. And just like with Microsoft, we see other areas that become red that were not red before. And so that's suggesting that MLab, who is, again, crowdsourced, measuring download speeds of 25 megabits per second and upload speeds of 35 megabits per second, this new red that MLab turns up here is indicating those are places where 25.3 is not available. And I think it's also, Heather, important to note that we at NTIA realize that there is no single silver bullet. There's no one single data set, or I don't think we'd be here. We'd all be using it. We wouldn't have to talk. There's no one answer to get to all these questions. There are many challenges, we know, with any crowdsourced data set. So what we're trying to do here is to add additional layers, to layer them in a way that reinforces and gives you more confidence in areas that become more red, to indicate to you that that might be an area that's really worth digging into.
So Sarah, when you talked about the MLab data, which is crowdsourced, has the NTIA thought about doing it more universal crowdsourcing, for example, to test the the Form 477 data, given the issues we've had about that?
Well, I don't know that we're saying that I think what we're trying to do is we do have this FCC info, and then but like we said, the FCC info it's simply saying that there's one household in that census block that has 25.3 available or servable, and the crowdsourced data could maybe be, we're not saying that the FCC data is wrong. It could be here at my house. CenturyLink, for example, submits, okay, Sarah's got 25.3, she's served, therefore this census block is served. On the other hand, the people who live across the street from me might not, and perhaps there's a speed test by MLab or Ookla going on from their house. They wouldn't measure the same speeds that I was getting. It's not to say that the FCC information is wrong, it's just that's why we're trying to remind people that there's no single silver bullet, that it is the compilation of these different layers to try to tell the story. What kind of indicators are we seeing out there? Where is an investment in broadband needed? So Heather, I'm going to turn off this MLab data just to quickly show another layer that we have, this Ookla data. Ookla is also a crowdsourced speed test data. It's also measuring where 25.3 at the census tract level is not available. So there are differences between MLab and Ookla, but they are both crowdsourced speed test data measuring 25.3. And again, reinforces what the FCC turned in, and it adds some other areas. So let me turn these layers off really quickly, just to explain what we have here from the Census Bureau. We've got, the Census Bureau does this American Community Survey, and we thought it was important to add this data. What we've got here on this first level is that 25% of households are reporting, those that are red here are where 25% of households at the census tract level are reporting no connectivity to the internet at all. And I'm going to add, you'll see it got a little bit more red when I add another American Community Survey data report, where this one measures 25% of households reporting no computer or smartphone or tablet, anything that could connect to the internet. And so keeping that in mind, I'm going to turn on this layer here, which is high poverty communities. This takes a second to render, but what this in purple is showing you is those census tracts where at least 20% of the population is below the current poverty threshold. And then finally, we have this layer, these other layers available to show, for example, minority serving institutions. And here is tribal lands. Tribal lands is, I admit, a little bit hard to see at this very zoomed out level, but let me turn that off again, turn it on for you so you can see some of that pop up. Now, if you recall earlier, I was talking about the ability to filter by minority serving institutions. So let me go back. While we have that MSI layer turned on, let me go over to this toggle icon. And what you can see here, right now we're showing all minority serving institutions, but let's say I only wanted to look at the historically Black colleges and universities. I turn that on and this is what you would see. Or on the other hand, if I wanted to only look at the tribal colleges and universities, we've put that information in here. Depending what your specific use case is, you can toggle things on and off and investigate. So let me go back over here. And let's go into, I'm going to turn off these layers and we're going to do more of a demonstration. Whoops. There we go. So I'm going to begin by looking, sorry, I'm not very coordinated with clicking all the time. I'm going to begin with the FCC Form 77 layer and the UCLA layer. And what you see up here in this white bar is that we can look at a particular geography. And I would encourage you to play along with this. If we go look at an example that we've been spending a lot of time talking about is East Carroll Parish. Oops.
So while you're going there, Sarah, I have another question.
Sure.
Does ACS percentage households without internet access mean they do not subscribe? Or does that mean there's no internet access offered in the area? Because we have this comment from someone in the audience that they then know areas that are not correct.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question. And it kind of goes to the point that we know that there's no single data set that's correct. What we're trying to do is to figure out where is more access needed and where does it need to be more affordable. We don't know in the ACS data, is it not affordable or is it because there's nothing there? So that's an excellent question. We're not saying that it's 20% because there's no internet available. It could very well be because it's not affordable.
Okay.
So what I've done here is I type in East Carroll Parish as an example, and I'm going to click on the map here. And what you can see, I'm going to move my go to web. Oops, sorry. I'm going to go back over here. Okay. A little pop-up. When I clicked on the map, I got a little pop-up and it says search result 1 of 3. And then there's a little arrow. So if I click on that arrow, right now we're pretty zoomed out. And what this tells us is where I clicked. It gives me that county information. So this is in Mississippi. There's there's a population of 1327, 57% without internet access, 45% without a device that provides access to the internet. There is no MLab data available here, but the Ookla speed test data is 8.35 megabits down and 3.05 up. Excuse me, and then it's also saying that 5% of households, according to the Microsoft servers, were downloading at speeds of 25 megs or greater. I'm going to click on the next one. And so that just, I clicked on the map, and so it's giving me the information of the surrounding counties. So here's the other county of East Carroll Parish, where we've got a population of just shy of 7,000 people, 55% of households without internet access, 51% without a device. This one has the MLab data seems to look okay. And the Ookla speed test data certainly looks better than what we saw next door. And, 5% more or 10% of Microsoft households with download speeds greater than 25 megabits per second. So I'm going to zoom into this. And over here on the lower left, you can zoom too. So if you remember over here, right now there we go. I don't know if anybody saw that. We were just at the county level, and now for the person who asked the question earlier, now we're at a level where I can actually view the tracked data. So my county level went away, and I'm able to view the tracked data. And so again, if I click anywhere here, then we're getting a little bit more granular so that we can see the census tract information. And keep in mind, I want to point out, I don't have all of my layers turned on over here, but still I think it's very useful that all of that information is coming up in this pop-up. What it's telling me that in this census tract in East Carroll Parish, there's a population of 2,000, 47% without internet access, 44% without devices, and the Ookla speed test is about 9.69 down and 4.65 up. So we can also zoom in a little bit more. And let me just, because I'm afraid I'm gonna blow things up a little bit.
Of course, we have a comment of skepticism from the group that is concerned about the believability of either the crowdsourced maps or the public data sets. And I know that's a tough one for you, Sarah, but I think what NTIA is saying is that there isn't one silver bullet, and that they're doing the best they can with all the information that's out there now.
Well, exactly. And I mean, it's fascinating to me. Like, I know that there are a lot of states who are pushing their state residents to start doing speed test data from your house. Or I just read last week, I think Airbnb is they're actually taking MLab data from Airbnb rental places, and that's becoming part of the description. I mean, that's marketing for Airbnb, but it's helpful. The more data sets that we have, the more times you do a speed test for Ookla or MLab or give it to your state, the better the information that we have. We just, we just have to keep, I think healthy skepticism is good. And I think that just reinforces the idea that we should be taking more and more tests so that we can zero in better and better. Where is it that investment needs to be made?
So does somebody has a follow-up to the ACS percentage question, and you may not know this, is how the question was phrased so that we would know whether it was can't get versus don't want.
That's an excellent, yeah, that's excellent. And you're right, we don't have the answer to that. All we know is that of the people who responded to the survey, that's the amount that 25% reported that they did not have it.
Yeah, okay.
And so zooming in, I just wanted to call to your attention that now we have anybody who's familiar with the geography of all this. We've got county levels at the biggest level, zeroing in a little bit more to the census tracts, and census blocks are just a little bit smaller. This is the information that the FCC gets from the service providers. This is not a good, perhaps, census block to click on because the population is 0. But here in this neighboring census block, the FCC's got a population of 9. They're according to the FCC, the maximum download speed is 20 megabits and the upload speed is 4 megabits. So, and again, if we want to look at neighboring information, you can see that this kind of zooms up to the census tract, where, again, we looked at this a few minutes ago, at the higher tract level population of 2,000 Ookla tests of 9 down and 4 up. So the final, finally, what I'd like to point out to you, and what I personally find to be the most valuable about this indicators of broadband need map, I think that it's very helpful to begin the conversations. I think the more data that we have, the better. I'll tell you that, oh, excuse me, that with, Heather, you probably know this, but with an NTIA, Congress gave us some money a few years ago to build the National Broadband Availability Map. And that's a private secure tool that we share with federal agencies and the states who've signed joint partner agreements, where more data can be put into this NBAM tool and shared for planning purposes. What you see here with the indicators of broadband need is an aggregated, skinny version of the NBAM tool. It's aggregated and skinnied because we don't want to breach any confidentiality. With the NBAM tool, our GIS SME calls it the Hotel California, that all of this data that goes into the NBAM tool, right now we're not able to pull it out. What I love about this indicators of broadband need map, if you see this little arrow on the bottom here, you can extract all of the data. It doesn't matter if I can pull all of the counties, census tracts, or census blocks. I warn you that there are a lot, so make sure you've got some heavy computing power on the back of your machine. But or we can filter if we want to just go by map level extent. What you can see at this county level, it doesn't matter which layers I have turned on or off. This is giving me all of the information that's available in the indicators of broadband need map. We've got the ACS, we've got populations, Ookla, MLab, Microsoft, all that. That's all available right now. And furthermore, what you can do is you can export it to a CSV. So visually, GIS is awesome if you're trying to tell a story and get to the point, hey, we need to start thinking about this. But we're also giving you the data available to download so that you can pull reports and crunch numbers and see from a more data binary yes or no perspective what the story looks like. So that was very important to us to put that capability into the hands of the American people. And that's the demonstration that I have, Heather. I'm going to stop sharing.
So somebody wants to know again how you got to the extract tool.
Yeah, sure. So let me get back out of here. Okay, there's this little arrow down here on the bottom. And it said, when I hover over it, it says open attribute table. And that pops this up. You can pull all of the data as long as you've got some strong computing behind it, or you can just filter to the level of the map. And you'll go over here to options. And then down on the bottom, you can see we have export all to CSV.
So the individual who asked that question, did that help them? No answer. All right, Sarah, I have a couple more questions and I'm sure we're going to have some come in. So will this map be capable of being easily updated if there are new speed samples? And I have to say, I'm so optimistic when I look at both the Treasury guidelines for the current broadband funds that are being worked on right now, and then also when we see what they put into the infrastructure bill proposed legislature. And the Treasury guidance was 100 by 100 in the ARPA money. I saw in the outline of the Treasury there are too many pieces of paper out there. The infrastructure bill, that it was 100/over 20. So will your map be able to be easily updated to accommodate that kind of speed changes?
Yeah, I think when I go back to the information at the beginning, where the disclaimer that we are not generating new data, we're taking data from third-party sources. So once the FCC is getting once those Form 477s are being updated and sent to the FCC, that's exactly what that's the kind of information that we're going to have in here. I do think that this is release one of the IBN, and I think that there will be other releases before the FCC publishes its new 477 information. I can't promise that, but yeah, we will. This is designed to be a tool that's dynamic living, that it's updated when new information is available. Remember, we're not creating this information ourselves. We are taking the data that's been given to us. So as that's available, yes.
So another question following up on the extraction. Can you export a lot of blocks, or does it have to be on a block by block basis?
No, that's really the gorgeous part of it, is that you can, I mean, make sure that you've got a powerful machine, because I made the rookie mistake of trying to download all census blocks, and that just doesn't work for me. But yeah, you can pull all data. You can filter by your state. You can filter by whatever you want. I was playing with it and trying to figure out by the Form 77 data, like who are the least, which census blocks are reporting the least amount of bandwidth, and then comparing that to geographies, poverty levels, anything that you want. So you can filter by a number of different ways with that capability.
And then I think one thing that'd be good for the audience to know is that there's a proprietary map being worked on that state and local governments and community organizations can use to assess whether they might be eligible for additional broadband funding. Can you talk about that proprietary map and who would have access to it or not, and what's going to be different about that?
Yeah, of course. That's a really good question. The National Broadband Availability Map is the tool that we house. It's private and secure. That is a GIS tool as well. What you see with the indicators of broadband need is a skinnier, aggregated version of that NBAM tool. The NBAM it's got petabytes of data. There's hundreds of different layers. That's closed only. Again, we've got UCLA data, we've got MLab data, we've got cost data, but that is closed, only available to be used by states and federal agencies. There's no third-party vendor, like UCLA doesn't have access to it, or this is just the states and the federal agencies. So we've got information from the FCC in there, we've got USDA. That's what the National Broadband Availability Map is.
Okay, and how do people get access to that?
What I would suggest right now, I think we've got 37 publicly announced states who are part of who've signed the joint partner agreements with us, who have access to the NBAM tool. I would work with your state broadband office. Actually, if you go to our website, you'll see state information there. Let me see if I can get back over there really quickly. You'll see that there is a map that shows which states are part of the NBAM, have access to the NBAM tool, and we have contacts there.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and then a question for the audience is, are you still using a 3-mile modeling from known wire centers such as that the Connected Nation provided for its entire existence, I guess? I guess the question was 3-mile modeling. I didn't know that they did 3-mile modeling, so.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to answer it, and if that person wants to maybe go into it a little bit more on the question, while you're doing that, I know that in the NBAM tool, what we have available to us with UCLA, for example, is little 100-meter hex bins. We can get very granular It's much better than census block level that's available in the NBAM. So I don't know if, I'm not familiar with the layer that shows the 3-mile radius from serving wire centers. I know that we also, as you know, Heather, the Connecting Minority Communities pilot program, NOFO, was issued today. And on a recent webinar, we introduced a tool that is based also on NBAM, where we've, anybody who's read the Connecting Minority Communities pilot program, there's this idea of where these minority serving institutions are and the surrounding areas. And so we have plotted radius information like that for the Connecting Minority Communities dashboard. But I'm not as familiar with the 3-mile radius around wire centers for the Connected Nation.
Yeah, the person said that is how Connected Nation created the state maps for all their states. I'm not as familiar with that, but I do know, and one of the follow-up questions I have for you is that many states just said, we can't deal with the FCC's maps anymore. They're insufficient. And we know we need to get broadband funding out there. And they created their own maps. And I wondered if any of your state partners are in this group, and are they taking this information and augmenting it based on what they've already collected?
I know that we have some extremely savvy and experienced states who have joined the NBAM tool, and many of them are doing who have GIS experts on staff who are able to do exactly what you're talking about. That's not the case across the board, but there are definitely states who are able to create their own maps.
But that's what I was asking is, are they augmenting your data?
Some of them do. Some of them I've seen, I can't go into too many details because it's confidential, but there are a few states who've got dozens of layers of information. There are some who've got their KMZ files in there. We can't take anything out of the NBAM tool, but states are encouraged to put their data into the NBAM tool.
Okay, so then it's available through them. It's not. Okay. Somebody put up the website where you can get more information on the ACS questions. It's on www.census.gov, programs, surveys. I would just go to it's under technical documentation and code lists. Wow, that's a real techie. I would not be interested in this, but I don't know. At the end, I will ask if we can make that website available to the entire audience.
We do. It's not, Heather, it's not as helpful probably as what your participant just shared, but on our information tab within the indicators broadband need, there is, for the data sources, there is the URL to the census data survey.
Okay, so you all can go there and see it. And how is the FCC using your information to ensure that its new maps are more reflective of what's really available?
Well, as you know, we've signed the interagency agreement with the FCC, and so we're sharing information and we meet with them weekly. The FCC's going to be collecting more granular information from service providers, and that will be shared with us.
Okay. And do you know where they are in their process? And what?
They issued the RFP. I know that, but I haven't seen. I can't comment on more than that.
Okay. And then the last question I have for you, and I don't see any more questions in the question box, but they may be coming in. When will we see a rollout of this information such that it makes changes in what areas are available for funding?
Well, a rollout of the, if you can, this IBN is available to anybody who wants to use it right now. Are you saying adding the additional, if 120 were required, or RDOF awardees or something like that?
Yes, yes.
That kind of information is available in our NBAM tool.
Okay. So will the FCC start relying on these data maps for its funding? Do we know when that will happen, when it'll start using this data to see if in fact the areas it's giving funding to are unserved and whatever level of speed they determine is next to come?
Well, I have to say, I kind of sympathize a little bit with the FCC's map, because it is only reporting what service providers have turned in. And so I hope that with some of the tool, like with, for example, the NBAM tool, the data layers that we have available, that the FCC is able to take all of those layers to zero in a little bit more on where investments need to be made.
Okay. We hope so too. And then somebody is asking about shape files. Do you know where the best source of census block shape files would be?
That's a really good question. I'm looking at, I don't know if you can, hold on, I'm looking at, when I go to the information, if you go back to the IBN tool, and I don't know if this is going to help the person who's asking that question, but if you go back to the indicators of broadband need and the information, and you scroll down and look at the ACS data, it will take you to a link so that you can open up the ACS variable boundaries in a map viewer. I don't know if that's also going to be downloadable, but I would at least start there.
Okay. All right, Sarah, this has been great. Are there any other questions from the audience before I turn it back over to Craig to do a wrap up? All right, Craig, I think we've answered them all. And Sarah, you've been a trooper to be up here and taking the grilling from the audience and oh, wait a minute. Somebody asked, and Craig will include this in his wrap up, on if the recording will be made available to the attendees. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Heather.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, what a phenomenal presentation, Sarah. So important. I'm sure there is a more important topic right now in our industry. Thank you so much for that. A couple of quick reminders. If you are attending Mountain Connect, August the 9th through 11th, and you're going to be out in Keystone, Colorado, be sure to visit the Broadband Bunch gang. They'll be located in booth number 6. And then in late September, if you should be attending the Broadband Communities 2021 Summit in Houston, guys will be in booth 102. This reminder, our next Zero Touch Learning session will be coming up in just 2 weeks, August the 17th, 2 p.m. Eastern. And be sure to join the founder of BevTech, Guy Bevente, for Myth-Busting Telco Artificial Intelligence and Analytics. And he will discuss the realities of AI and AR with industry leaders. Huge thanks again to Sarah. Heather, phenomenal job. Also, a shout out to Mary Beth Henderson, as always, doing a phenomenal job behind the scenes to make these learning series sessions possible. On behalf of everyone here, thanks for letting us be a part of your day. We'll see you next time.